Shabbat Shalom, everyone. We are so glad to be back with you. You know, I'm getting a little sick of saying that now after a year because we're really sick of not being with you. But at least we have this amazing technology that allows us to, in some virtual way, welcome in Shabbat together still as a community. And I do think that there is a light on the horizon, which we can see a time that we will be, hopefully in the near future, certainly in this calendar year, together again to celebrate all of the holidays and Shabbatot that we long to do together. So we just need to maintain a little bit of patience. We're sort of, I call it, in the 24th mile of a marathon. No one ever feels good then. There's frustration, you're sick of it, you want it to end, you want it to just be over. But we're not there. We're almost there, but we're not there yet. So stay strong, keep your mask on, and we'll be together again sooner than later. We're going to welcome in Shabbat. We're going to do it virtually, and I'd like to welcome Rabbi Flip to come and light our Shabbat candles.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lahadlik ner shel Shabbat. Praised are you, Adonai, our God, creator of the universe, creator of the universe. By your commandments we are sanctified as we kindle the lights of Shabbat. Amen.
Those watching who joined us for the happy holiday of Purim may recall that they got to see an actual angel. That would be Julie Greenberg, dressed as Emmanuel, the angel who online can help you find all of the sources of interesting information that you would need in an Emmanuel. Okay, we're going to welcome our Sabbath angels now with the words of Shalom Aleichem.
Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Hasharet, Malachei Elyon, Melech Malachei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Lachem Shalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Elyon, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Barkuni l'shalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Elyon. Melech Malachei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Sekem l'shalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Elyon. Melech Malachei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu.
Tomorrow morning, Madeline Morgan will become a bat mitzvah. She leads us now in the words of Hatzi Kaddish.
Yikadal viet kadashime rabba. Ba'oma divra hute viamlik mar hute. B'chaychon uviome home. Uvareda kol beit Yisrael. Ba'agala uvizman kariv. Vimaru amen. Yehei shmei rabba mavora. La'olam olome amaya. Yitbarach. Yitbarach viet tabash viet pa'ar viet romam viet nase. Vit hadar, vit hale, vit halal, Shemay de Kudasha, Brihu, Le Ola, Mimkol, Birhata, Vishirata, Tushbakata, Veneharata, Damiran Melma, Vimaru, Amen.
Baruch Hu et Adonai HaMevorach Baruch Adonai HaMevorach Leolam Vaed HaMevorach Leolam Vaed.
Shabbat Shaban leads us in the words of Ahavat Olam. God so loved the world that he revealed to us the truth of Torah.
Oh, 1, 2, 3, 4. Ahavat olam beit Yisrael, Amcha ahavta, Amcha ahavta. Torah u'mitzvot, Elohim u'mishpatim, Otanu lamadta, Otanu lamadta. Akein Adonai Eloheinu shapenu u'meinu, nasir b'chukecha, v'nizmach b'divrei Toratecha, u'mitzvotecha le'olam vaed. Yehi chayenu, v'yorech yaleinu, u'bahem nagem v'layla nagem, yomam v'layla. Ba'avatcha al tasir, imeinu olamim. Baruch atah Adonai, ohev amo Yisrael. Ohev amo Yisrael.
So one of the fascinating opportunities during these COVID times has been the ability to use technology to reach out to people in the four corners of the earth who can now often will attend a funeral that wouldn't have normally been able to do so. Well, we as Jews have always grabbed the four corners of the talus representing the four corners of the earth and wrapped them together in preparation of the idea, the notion that we are in fact all connected. We are all one.
Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Adonai Echad Baruch Shem Kavod Shem Kavod shall love Adonai your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your might. And all these words which I command you on this day shall be in your heart, shall be in your heart. And you shall teach them diligently unto your children, and you shall speak of them when you're sitting in your house, when you're walking by the way, and when you're lying down, and when you're rising up, and when you're rising up. And you shall bind them for a sign upon your hand, and they shall be for frontlets between your eyes. And you shall write them on the doorposts of your house and upon your gates, and upon your gates, that you may remember and do all of my commandments, and be holy unto your God, unto your God, unto your God.
Once we were slaves to Pharaoh. Now we are free to Zoom. The biblical tale of slavery and redemption is replete with stories of magnificently courageous women playing important and key roles in the liberation of the Jewish people. On March 22nd at 7 p.m., Rabbi Lori, Miss Lisa Silver, Chava Morel, and a variety of other guests will host a women's Seder, battling the notion that one group of people should ever be subservient to another group of people. We will eat an orange. We will drink from Miriam's cup. We will not let history off the hook from her story. Men, of course, are welcome, and you can register on our website. Yes, Don't Touch My Matzah, the Women's Seder, Monday, March 22nd. In celebration of such events, we sing the Miriam song.
1, 2, 3, 4. Ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 la. Ya la la la. Ya la 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 la. Mi chamocha ba'eli Madonai. Mi chamocha nedar b'kodesh. Torah tehilot osefele. Torah tehilot osefele.
And the women dancing with their timbrels followed Miriam as she sang her song. Sing a song to the one who we've exalted. Miriam and the women danced and danced the whole night long.
Mi chamocha ba'eli Madonai. Mi chamocha nedar b'kodesh. Torah tehilot osefele. Torah tehilot osefele.
And the women dancing with their timbrels followed Miriam as she sang her song. Sing a song to the one who we've exalted. Miriam and the women danced and danced the whole night long.
Ya la
so glad that Rabbi Flip mentioned Miriam, and we just sang about her, because Miriam is just one of so many women who are instrumental in the Exodus story. In fact, the rabbis teach that the way we know that women were really the optimistic hope keepers of the Israelites is because they made their timbrels and fashioned them before they ever left Egypt to make instruments to celebrate with when one day one would be free is just the ultimate expression of optimism and hope. So the women knew all along that this would be their destiny and that they would have cause to celebrate. And that same optimism and hope is what we find in the prayer of Hashkivenu. This idea that even though night falls and there's less that we can see or be sure of, we still maintain an optimism and hope that a new day will come and that it will bring sunshine and joy and fresh opportunity.
Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu l'shalom, l'shalom. V'hamidenu malkeinu l'chaim. Ufros aleinu sukat shlomecha, ufros aleinu sukat shlomecha.
Shelter us beneath thy wings, O Adonai. Guard us from all harmful things, O Adonai. Keep us safe throughout the night, till we wake with morning's light. Teach us, God, wrong from right. Amen. 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 Amen.
So you have heard the beautiful voices of Rabbi Lori Rice and Miss Lisa Silver. You know Jerry is here also playing with us, Jerry Kimbrough. And so we've heard from Shabbat Band. We are also blessed and feel very thankful to have in our musical repertoire Jenny Young on the cello. And she joins Miss Lisa now in a version of Hodu Ladonai Kitov. We thank you, God, always.
Hodu l'Adonai ki tov, ki le'olam chasto, ki le'olam chasto. Yomarna, Yomarna, Yisrael, ki le'olam chasto, ki le'olam chasto. Let all who revere God's name now say, Ki le'olam chasto. Give thanks to God, for God is good. Ki le'olam chasto. Hodu l'Adonai ki tov, ki le'olam chasto, ki le'olam chasto.
We have arrived at that portion of our service where we invite you, if you choose, to rise for our tefillah, our central prayer.
Adonai tzifatai tiftach ufi yagi tehilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu v'Elohei avotenu v'emotenu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, v'Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, v'Elohei Leah. האל הגדול, הגיבור והנורא, אל עליון, גומל חסדים טובים, וקונה הכל, וזוכר חסדי אבות ואמהות, ומביא גאולה לבני בניהם, למען שמו באהבה. מלך עוזר ומושיע ומגן, ברוך אתה אדוני, מגן אברהם ועזרת שרה. אתה גיבור לעולם אדוני, מחיי הכל אתה רב להושיע. מכלכל חיים בחסד, מחיי הכל ברחמים רבים. סומך נופלים ורופא חולים, ומתיר אסורים, ומקיים אמונתו לשני עפר. מי כמוך בעל גבורות, ומידו מלך, מלך ממית ומחיה, ומצמיח ישועה, ונאמן אתה להחיות הכל. ברוך אתה אדוני, מחיה הכל. אתה קדוש ושמך קדוש, וקדושים בכל יום יהללוך סלה. ברוך אתה אדוני, האל הקדוש.
Avodah Shebalev, it is the service of the heart, the prayer of the heart. It's the same word, avodah. And it's that muscle we flex right now when we think about those all over the world in need of healing, in need of blessings. Prayers you have that are only in your heart. And so we leave a little time for some silence for you to offer those prayers.
May the words of my mouth and meditations of my heart be acceptable to you, O God, my rock and my redeemer. Adonai Tzuri v'goali Amen.
God of consolation, surely you count in heaven just as we count here on earth. In shock and in sorrow, the souls sent back to you, one by one, those taken from the COVID pandemic. As the ones become tens, and the tens become hundreds, the hundreds become thousands, the thousands become 10,000s, and then 100,000s, each soul a heartbreak, each soul a life denied. God of wisdom, surely in the halls of divine justice, you are assembling the courts and calling witnesses to testify, to proclaim the compassion of some and the callousness of others. As we've struggled to cope, the souls taken too soon, whose funerals were lonely, who didn't need to die, who died alone, will tell their stories when you judge our triumphs and our failures in these hours of need. God of healing, an end to this pandemic and all illness and disease. Bless those who stand in service to humanity. Bless those who grieve. Bless the dead, so that their souls are bound up in the bond of eternal life. And grant those still afflicted with disease or trauma a completed and lasting healing, one by one, until suffering ceases and we can stop counting the dead in heaven and on earth. We think this week of Sonia Marco, Steve Geringer, Violet Colton, Michelle Giffen, Savannah Morris, Jane Sherberg, Paul Richter, Debbie Rogers, Lee Cohen, Marcy Seligstein, Rudy Saperstein, Ronald Swanson, George Kamatz, Anita Hicks, Gail Hooper, Andrew Holmes, Crystal Miller, and Jerry Hutchison. Please feel free to share aloud, wherever you are, the names of those you are thinking of, and we'll include them in our prayer of healing this Shabbat.
Dear God of our ancestors, help us renew our faith. Grant us a perfect healing. Bring peace to all our days. Elna Refana La Refana Lanu. Elna Refana La Refana Lanu. Restore our strength of body, help clarify our minds, refresh our tired spirits, rejuvenate our light. Elna Refana La Refana Lanu. Elna Refana La Refana Lanu. Thank you for all these blessings throughout our days and nights. We celebrate the journey, this precious gift of life. Elna Refana La Refana Lanu. Elna Refana La Refana Lanu.
Jane Austen wrote in Pride and Prejudice, "Angry people are not always wise." So what are we to say of Moses in today's Torah portion, who displays one of history's greatest temper tantrums when he comes down from Mount Sinai, from spending the last 40 days and 40 nights dwelling in the presence of God, with the tablets of the commandments in his hand, only to be confronted by the sight of the people who were waiting below, who had constructed a golden calf, an idol around which they were dancing and celebrating. And in a fit of rage, he casts the tablets to the ground, breaking them, and castigates the people for the faithlessness and for their disloyalty. And to this day, the image of those broken tablets is arguably history's most famous example of righteous anger. But angry people are not always wise. So, was Moses' temper tantrum a moment of deep wisdom or a lack of control? Well, Rabbi Lord Jonathan Sachs, Zichrono Livracha, may his memory always be a blessing, points out in his excellent commentary on the weekly Torah portion that Moses was not criticized for this particular display of anger. In fact, one biblical commentator known as Reish Lakish, using a close reading of the words of the Torah, learns that God actually approved of Moses' anger. And later, in commenting on the concluding words of the Torah, notes that it states, "No other prophet has arisen in Israel like Moses, who knew God face to face, or in any of the mighty hand and awesome wonders Moses displayed in the sight of all Israel." And on the phrase mighty hand, the rabbi said that it refers to the breaking of the tablets. In other words, they saw this act of Moses as one of his greatest acts of courage and leadership. So we learn from this that anger is good. Well, maybe not so quick. Many years later, our hero was faced with another moment of crisis. The people had arrived at Kadesh, and in Kadesh, there was no water. The people complained. Once again, Moses displays anger. Told by God to speak to the rock, he struck it twice with his rod, and water gushed out. Now this time, however, instead of being praised for what he did, God said to Moses, "Because you did not trust in me, to sanctify me in the sight of the Israelites, you will not bring this assembly into the land that I have given them. You, Moses, will not enter the promised land." Now, these two moments in Moses' life are puzzling. Both are expressions of anger, both responses to a people out of control, but one was commended and the other condemned. And this leads us to ask, why was a show of anger appropriate in one case but not the other? Is anger always wrong when shown by a leader, or is it sometimes necessary? We can find our answer if we look to Moses Maimonides, Rambam, the medieval Sephardic Jewish philosopher. In his Laws of Character, Maimonides tells us that in general, we should follow the middle way in emotional life. But there are two emotions that Maimonides says we should not follow a middle way, but rather we should strive to eliminate them entirely from our emotional life. And those two emotions, according to Maimonides, are pride and anger. Here's what Maimonides has to say about anger. Anger is an extremely bad attribute, and one should distance oneself from it by going to the other extreme. One should train oneself not to get angry, even about something to which anger might be an appropriate response. The ancient sages said, "One who yields to anger is as if he had worshipped idols." Therefore, they have instructed us to keep far from anger, training ourselves to stay calm even in the face of provocation. This is the right way. Well, this makes sense as to why God got angry with Moses over striking of the rock, but it doesn't explain why Moses is praised for his display of anger in this week's Torah reading. But wait, it seems that Maimonides added one more thought to his exegesis on anger. Maimonides ends his teaching on the danger of anger with one important qualification. He says if one wants to instill reverence in his children and family, or in public if he is head of the community, and his desire to show them his anger so as to bring them back to the good, he should appear to be angry with them so as to reprove them. But he must inwardly remain calm, as if he were acting the part of an angry man, but in reality he is not angry at all. According to Maimonides, the emotion of anger is always the wrong response, but a display of anger may not be. When we feel anger, we often lose control, and we say and do things that are directed by our anger rather than by our reason. What was it that Jane Austen said? Angry people are not always wise. I suspect that Maimonides would say angry people are rarely wise. Ambrose Pierce, the American Civil War writer, said, "Speak when you are angry, and you will give the best speech you will ever regret." In her book, The Language of Emotions, What Your Feelings Are Trying to Tell You, author Carla McLaren asserts that while we often see emotions like anger as inherently problematic, or strong displays of emotion as inherently problematic, emotions exist because we need them. There's no bad emotion, she says. She doesn't really agree with Maimonides. She says bad emotions don't exist. They're always giving us information. It's learning to listen to what they're trying to tell us that's really important. McLaren calls anger the honorable sentry, the border guard. Anger is the emotion that guards your borders, and that when anger shows up, it's usually because we've experienced something as a trespass of a boundary that we didn't consent to. And so our anger comes to guard against that. If we are to take the sage wisdom of Maimonides and the modern wisdom of McLaren and apply it to our anger today, we might ask, when we feel the emotion of anger, what has been violated for me? What am I perceiving as having been violated, whether it's true or not? So rather than repressing anger, as Maimonides might have us do, rather we interrogate it to better understand what's behind it. In doing so, we revert to reason. We bring our wisdom, and then we feel it, and we channel it, so it doesn't perpetuate harm on the other person or the other people in our lives. Now, I wish I could tell you that I've developed to the level that Maimonides teaches where I no longer feel anger, but I'm not there yet. But I think I've achieved a level of wisdom to know that no good will comes from anger and rage. And most of the time, not all of the time, but most of the time, I seek alternate ways to vent anger. Moses was wrong when he struck the rock because he allowed his anger to control him. He felt enormous anger at the faithlessness of this people that he had led from slavery to freedom miles and miles through the desert. A people that had time and again witnessed with their own eyes the miracles of God and still had not yet learned to believe, to be faithful, to trust. And Moses gave into that anger and struck the rock, and God was angry at Moses. This is not a way for a leader to act. But earlier in his career, in the incident of the golden calf, in our portion this week, Maimonides would have us believe that Moses won God's approval and the praise of our sages because that was not a moment of loss of control, but precisely the opposite. It was a carefully constructed display of anger intended to teach a wayward people the extent of their sinfulness. Rabbi Jonathan Sacks calls this therapeutic anger. It's done not out of emotion, but out of careful and deliberate judgment that this is what the situation calls for right now in this moment. The person who delivers the shock is not so much feeling anger as they are employing it. That's, in fact, what makes it more shocking. Now, as parents, we all know the value of therapeutic anger, of the deliberate display at a moment when we know the situation calls for it, even though anger might not be what we're feeling. But as parents, we also know that the times when we're allowed to let anger overwhelm us and when it causes us to say or do things that in retrospect, maybe we wish we had not said or done. We've all been there. There are families and cultures where anger is used all too often. We live at a moment in history when we are in desperate need of leaders who will model calm and thoughtful guidance, but instead, our TV screens and Twitter feeds and newspapers are filled with all sorts of examples of anger, fits of outrage, resentments that are abusive and harmful. We feel sometimes like we live in a world that's filled with anger, a country where at times politicians nurture anger and resentment as a weapon. They're out to take your guns, they're out to take your jobs, they're out to steal your culture, your language, your country. I will defend you. I can protect you. Amongst all the lawn signs that we have seen over the past year or so, and we're not actually allowed to put lawn signs in my neighborhood, but I love driving around different parts of Nashville and seeing them. One of my very favorites is the one that reads, "Hate has no home here." I think we really need one of those signs here at Micah, don't you? Because what it means to say that hate has no home here is that our synagogue is a safe place where everyone is welcome and valued. It expresses the essence of our commitment to inclusiveness. It expresses our refusal to allow anger and resentment to cloud our better judgment. A close reading of this week's Torah portion yields two really important lessons, and I hope you will enter Shabbat tonight armed with both of them. Hate has no home here. Anger, if not interrogated or understood by the one feeling that emotion, can be bad for the person who feels it and even worse for the person on the receiving end of it. Anger can be abusive and harmful. It's not that we should never feel angry, but we should remember to ask how or why we feel violated before reacting. Moreover, there are occasions that demand that we be angry and show it. When we see leaders act wrongly, we should express anger. When we're in the presence of injustice, we should display anger. Moses understood when he threw those tablets to the ground in a display of enormous anger that his people needed a shock to help them change their lives. Jane Austen wrote that angry people are not always wise. She didn't say they're never wise. On this Shabbat, let's learn from Moses, our prophet, to be wise in our emotions, all of them, to feel them in their fullest, but not to be held captive or controlled by them. May we grow each day and on the Shabbat in wisdom and in strength. And may our whole Micah community and our whole beautiful world know health and hope in the week to come. Shabbat Shalom.
Thank you, Rabbi Lori. We will continue with our service with the words of Aleinu. I'm going to open up the ark one more time.
Aleinu l'shabech Adon hakol, לתת גדולה ליוצר בראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי הארצות, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגורלנו ככל המונם. ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים, הקדוש ברוך הוא. ונאמר, והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ, ביום ההוא, ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד, ושמו, ושמו, ושמו אחד.
It is a fearful thing to love what death can touch, writes the poet. A fearful thing to love, hope, dream, to be and oh, to lose. A thing for fools this, a holy thing to love. For your life has lived in me, your laugh once lifted me, your word was gift to me. To remember this brings a painful joy. 'Tis a human thing, love, a holy thing to love what death has touched. We continue to mourn for Rich Michelle and Henry E. Foyer, Dr. Bob Serkin and Aidan Becker, Robert Golden, Des Zamek, Elaine Farinacci, Rabbi Jonathan Sachs, Charlene Creeley, John Giffen, Faye Serkin, Joyce Murray, Richard I. Bourne, Fran Schmerling, Peggy J. West, Christopher Miller, and Molly Stein. On the anniversaries of their deaths, we think of Joseph Friedman, of Lorraine Gervich and Sam Gervich, and also of Sue Gervich, of Dora Gertner and Edgar Cyrus Haas Jr., and Jack Keller, Vanessa Lee Kim, Selma Lewis, John McGath, Ruth Provitzer, Mary Catherine Russ, Althea Fifi Surface, and Dora Weiss. You, of course, can add any names to the list as I invite you to rise if you like and join me if you have it. The words to Kaddish Yatom, the Mourner's Kaddish. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah. Be'alma divra hirutei v'yamlich malchutei. V'chayachon uv'yomachon uv'chayei dechol beit Yisrael ba'agala uv'izman kariv v'imru amen. Yehei shmei Rabbah mevarach la'alam ulalmei almaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh. V'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shmei d'kudisha b'richu. Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata tush bechata v'nechamata. Damiran be'alma v'imru amen. Yehei shlomo Rabbah min shemaya v'chaim aleinu v'yal kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav. Hu ya'aseh shalom. Aleinu v'yal kol Yisrael v'imru amen. We ask that the source of peace send peace to all who mourn, comfort to all who are bereaved. We say one final time together. Amen. Okay, before we make a kiddush, I have announcements. I'm certain of it. They're up here. Let's see what they got. Oh, here they are. I'm wrong. They're not here. Here they are. Okay. Don't be shocked by this. All programs and their registration Zoom links can be found on the Micah website. They're all on Zoom, okay? But as Rabbi Lori said at the beginning of the service, there is a light at the end of the tunnel. We're talking about it. Shabbos continues, of course, tomorrow morning. Torah study, all are welcome. I'm going to be there, and it's really delightful. If you've never tried it, you zoom on in. You can zoom out anytime you want. No one judges you. It's meaningful conversation. It's delightful people, and everybody's very compassionate. It's a safe space. Thistle Farms Mom's Night In, Tuesday, March 9th at 7 p.m. I know Rabbi Lori's going to be there, and Julie Greenberg, and I think Mindy Dronkowski, maybe some others. There will be some, meditating and shopping is what I'm told. The afterlife. Is there an afterlife? Part 2. That's kind of a pun. Wednesday, March 11th, it's a class on Zoom. Information again on our website. If you want to know if there's an afterlife, you should take the class. Schmooze and Views, political conversation, but Dr. Bob Smith monitors it and drives our conversation. Everyone gets a chance to participate and share their opinions. Thursday, March 11th, we meet at 10:30 in the morning, also on on Zoom. Am I Jewish enough? I'm not asking. I'm asking you. It's a great class. Have you taken it? It's in partnership with the congregation and Rabbi Lori's friend, a fellow rabbi in Detroit. It takes place Fridays. It'll be March 12th this coming week at noon. And this month is Micah's Equal Justice Month. And if you want to know what that is, you should find out more about how we advocate and how we volunteer via our social justice page on our website. Finally, Passover preparations are in the works. Micah Minis, there'll be a special Pesach edition Friday, March 20th at 9:30 in the morning. Don't touch my matzah. I mentioned the Women's Seder in the course of our service this evening, Monday, March 22nd. It'll be a delightful and powerful event for sure. First night Seder is scheduled for Saturday, March 27th, and that's at 5:30 p.m. We will do that on Zoom. It will be interactive. And, if you ever wanted to see, like, the rabbi's living room, this is your chance. Okay. Shabbat Shalom, that's what I got there. Let's do a Kiddush.
All right. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kitshenu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu v'shabbat kodsho b'ahava uvratzon hinkilanu zikaron l'maaseh v'reishit ki hu yom techila l'mikra'e kodesh zecher l'tziat Mitzrayim Kivanu v'achata v'yatanu kidashta mikol hamim v'shabbat kodshecha v'ahava uvratzon hinchaltanu Baruch atah Adonai mekadesh hashabbat.
L'chaim. We sing you out this evening after saying thank you to Misty for working on our sound and Jerry for providing the sound and Miss Lisa Silver and Rabbi Lori with the words of a ningun from Shabbat Shabbat. Shabbat Shalom, everyone.
A 1, 2, 3, 4. Ya, la, 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 ya.